should probably get started. It's already time. It's amazing how this whole weekend has just flown by, and it's been such a delight. I wanted to kind of just go around the room real quick and then just introduce ourselves really quick. I think it's important for like kind of ambiance and our understanding who we are is really like fundamental. And then Rabsal's going to kind of start off with a few words, and then I'll go back and talk, go through some of the slides that I prepared. But again, I don't want to stick like to anything too formally. If anyone, if we have questions, I feel like this is the space to ask. And really, everything I've learned here and talking about, I started in Lauren's class and then with Gedun Rabsal. So like, I'm like, just like, I still feel like I don't know anything, but I try. So it's just a delight to kind of go through this material and talk about these things, which really I find very dear to me. And I wanted to just share, like briefly before, I translated an Abecedarian poem with A to Z and Z to A again, because I had to show this, because it was important to me, like just like Dominique said, it was just really important to me to keep the form. And I know like hardly anybody knows about the Lotsawa Library newsletter. Unfortunately, well, maybe a lot of people do. I hope they do.
All available online.
All available online. But it's such a gem, like, I mean, way beyond this issue, there's a lot of gems there, and I just wanted to share that with you. So I'll pass that around too as we go. But let's go around the room real quick. Shall we start with Nancy?
Sure. Nancy Lynn, UC Berkeley, 85,000. Did you want me to say anything about my background?
I think it's okay. I guess if anyone has any specific questions that they want to bring up here, that might be a good time too, just to at least get it out there. Yeah. And then we can go this way. Go the Bun way.
I was a Ornamentation student for 4 years, and then I was a Tsadra scholarship recipient.
Great. Tell me your name one more time. I didn't.
Joshua Shaw.
Joshua Shaw. Got it. Okay.
Ben Ewing from Northern Yeshe and Kāvyādarśa.
Great.
And I'm Lowell Cook, currently based in Chengdu at the Southwest University of the Nationalities. One of my hobbies, I guess, is trying to write in Tibetan, write poetry, and I like to try and do this wordplay type stuff, so that's kind of why I'm here.
I'm Julie Reagan. I teach Asian relations at the South University, and I work on Buddhist poetics and Sanskrit and Tibetan.
I'm Tilly Brooks, and I'm at McGill as a graduate student.
I'm Sarah Jacoby, coming from Northwestern University. I'm often translating Namtar, but in Namtar there are so many songs and verses, so I find this really important to learn more about.
Yeah, my name is Gedun Rabsal. I teach Tibetan for many years at Indiana University. Yeah.
Nicole Willock, I'm at Old Dominion University now, studied with Rabsal and the late Elliot Sperling as well. Yeah.
Curtis Schaefer at the University of Virginia, and my question for you is, when is your translation of Nyingachino going to come out?
Good question. Can I dodge that one?
So I'm Lauren Hartley. I work as Tibetan Studies librarian at Columbia University, and my research interests are Tibetan literature and intellectual history.
Michael Monhart, independent translator in New York City, and I was introduced to the glories of Tibetan literature in Lauren's class also.
I'm TV. I'm now a visiting scholar in Seoul.
Annabelle Pitkin, Lehigh University, and like Sarah said, I work often with Namtar, but there's a lot of sort of poetic elements, and I'm interested in doing more of that.
Andy Quitman, I went to Wesleyan University, and Nicole Willock are my favorite dynamic duo.
Okay, so
The first of the dynamic duo.
okay, so no, that's fine.
He said to speak into the mic.
I know. Okay. So I like yesterday what Andy and Kurt's doing. I mean, back and forth going through, but I think maybe our matchup, maybe I don't know how it goes, right? So I kind of think like that. I think our job today, is I want Nicole go through the chapter 3 as fast as you can. And that our goal is to confuse you guys all to the point, your heads span out. No, I think she did a very wonderful job to this chapter 3 PowerPoint. And I think let her run her melodies, right? And after that, I think I will go through, and we both go through the handout very quickly. And after that, maybe I think we all focus on the Longchenpa. Maybe Longchenpa is one of favorite scholars. I have something to say, but later on. So, Dr. Willock.
Okay, boss. Got it.
If you could please use the
More of the mic, no problem. Okay, so as I have been instructed, I'm going to take you through the whirlwind of chapter 3 of the Kāvyādarśa, based on Tseten Zhabdrung's commentary, which has been, we basically have translated the rough draft of this commentary called Nyenak Chidun, and Lauren's worked on it as well. We need a Sanskritist to help us with the Sanskrit terms. So call for help out there to you, the audience, any Sanskritists who would like to just kind of, go through it kind of quickly and just double check our the terms, terminology. It would be very, very helpful for this translation project. And so I've been asked to go through this chapter. I'm going to go through kind of quickly to really just give an overview of this chapter. But how many of you are familiar with this? Just like the basic layout of the chapter, because I think Curtis is, Julie is, Nancy is, Annabella, Andy, and okay. So good. That gives me an idea of what I need to concentrate on. We're also going to focus on one particular form. This form is within the category of dragyen, which I've translated based on, I think, Brunner's translation of wordplay, and maybe Nancy came up with this as well. I don't know. I know Nancy had a lot to do with this idea that this stuff in the Shabda Alamkara is fun. Like it is like where you get to play with words and do acrostics and vowels, and it's really like this richness of the phonemic value of poetry. So it's about beat, it's about rhythm, it's about alliteration, it's about all these kind of fun techniques. And one in particular is a pretty common one in both Nyenak and Gur. And Rabsal is gonna he's got an analysis of the kind of differences of that I think will be really interesting for everybody. I learned a lot from that. So anyway, chapter 3 is split into kind of basically 3 main parts. The first part, so on the left side of the screen here, is the dragyen, the ornaments of sound, literally, or sometimes translated as ornaments of phonemic ornaments as well. You can translate it that way. The second part of this chapter is gapsikigyen, the riddles, which are really fun, but we're not going to do today because they're really hard. And then the kyunsewe, or kyunsewa, the removing errors, especially like contradictions and a bunch of stuff like that. We're not going to do those 2 and 3 today. We're just really going to focus on wordplay. And like I said, I'm going to go through basically an overview of the chalawa, the chakawa, and the young sokneva. So it's the easy ornaments, the difficult ornaments, and the certain vowels ornaments, and with more of a concentration on one particular easy ornament called zongden. Zongden is a Sanskrit is yamaka. Is that correct? Okay. The yamaka is the Sanskrit translation for this. This is the first in the category of easy. And I'm taking this definition literally from Danden's Kāvyādarśa. Does anyone want to read it out loud so I'm not talking the whole time? Volunteer. Michael.
Yamaka is the repetition of groups of letters, contiguous or discontinuous. Its range pertains to the initial, medial, and final parts of the pada. The varieties of the yamaka may appear in one of the 4 pada of the conventional pada or stanza, in all or in any combination, in the beginning, middle, and the middle and the end, the middle and the beginning and the end, and throughout.
Yeah.
Like a hard sutra.
It's really true. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. And then within that category of Zongden, then of course there are 6 types, and each of these categories have then 6 subtypes. This is all on the Google Drive, by the way, so I know I'm going to be moving quickly, so I just want to let you know these slides are on the Google Drive. So if you need them, they're there. Okay, so the first one is really the one I'm going to concentrate on, the repetition of initial 2 syllables in any foot or pada. And then there's this repetition. So I want to pause for just a second and talk about this term repetition, because I'm sort of drawing this translation from Epling's dissertation. He uses the term phonemic repetition for this particular ornament. And I thought that works really well, but it's literally pairing, right? So that's literally what it means. The problem with using pairing in English is that it's a bit of a misnomer, because we think of pairs usually together, but these pairs can be apart. So they're there, but they're not necessarily next to each other. And you're going to see that in just a second. And then you can basically get this pair of syllables almost anywhere in any poem. And sometimes they're in the first line and so on. So this is the list of the 6 types. I'm not going to go through all of them in detail, but I just want to let you know that they're all there. Then this first one, okay, so this first, this Gumpa Namgi Dungpo Nayope Zongden is then split into 3 main parts, okay? So the first one is this pair of syllables which are bamachu. They're not separated, so they're contiguous. That means they're next to each other, okay? That's what contiguous means here. And then the second category is the barduchupe zongden, so that they are separated, or discontiguous is the way, again, Epling translated from the Sanskrit. And then, of course, you get the mixture of the 2. We've kind of seen this before, right? All right, then the first one, okay, so this very first one here, this barmachu, right, Zongden, that's then split into 4 different subcategories. You ready? We're going to get a lot of subcategories here, so just ride the wave. All right. The first one, it's pretty clear, right? It's just at the beginning of the first line only, at the beginning of the second line only, at the beginning of the third line only, at the beginning of the fourth line only. All right. We're going to go and just look at the second one, the contiguous syllables in 2 feet. Okay, so it's at the beginning of the first 2 lines, at the beginning of the first and the third line, and this means that they're next to each other, right? At the beginning of the first 2 lines, and then or the first and the third lines, the first and the fourth lines, and so on. Okay, I think you can all read that because I want to go through it quickly. And then we get 1.13, which is the next one, contiguous syllables in 3 feet, so it's in all 3 lines in various positions. Okay, I think it's clear, right? There's no kind of real questions, I think, on that. All right, then we get, now it's time for an example, because otherwise this makes no sense, right? So this is the contiguous syllables, so these, this barmachu, like no separation, right, in all 4 feet. And this is one of Tseten Zhabdrung's own for his Nyenat Chidon to explain it to his students. So do we want to read who wants to read the Tibetan? Or I think it's so nice sounding, so any volunteers? Lol, would you like to read it? Yes. I don't know, Rabsal is going to read a lot in a minute, so. I can kind of see it. Can you see it? Or? Mm-hmm. Right. And so yeah, you got it. So when I was translating this the first time, right, I didn't really do anything with the repetition of the syllables. But one of the things that I thought would be nice in English is, again, to play with this form, right? And so how in English can we kind of manifest this reduplication in a fun way? And I kept thinking, oh, we have adverbs. You know, we have adverbs and adjectives in these different forms. And so like swiftly swift, flying rapid like zephyr riders, dazzling dazzle, stunning like golden eyes, clamoring clamor, ear-splitting like the sound of the thunder, especially special travels. That's a little weird. But anyway, this is an airplane, you know, and so this is his kind of description of an airplane using this verse, which I liked. And the drishun is a nunju, is a kenning, right? And the kenning literally is like, what is it, like smell rider, like odor rider. But I'm like, if anyone in English like heard odor rider, you would be like, yeah, it just wouldn't sound right. So I was trying to think of other words like for that, and I came up with zephyr, because I think zephyr is such a great word anyway. So yeah, that was my kind of rendition of a nunju. We're going quickly. And so I just want to give you the overview one more time because it gets really confusing, but we just looked at 1.1. Okay, that was all of them. Now we're going to go on to 1.2 really quickly so you get an idea of how these are different. This is the Bardachipadzungdan, right? And I know it gets kind of small, but it's again repetitive here. It's the idea is that the syllables are separated, but they can be in different places. So at the beginning of the first two lines, at the beginning of the first and third lines, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to go into all of them, but I think you get the idea, right? Do I need to slow down at all, or? Okay. All right. So here's another example, and this is describing the Machu River, and I think we won't translate this one, but I want you to just kind of look at this and see that the gya is it's separated, right, from the gya in the third line, but this is together, right? This is a zungden. So the pairing idea, like sometimes I think can be confusing here because, and that's why I use this idea of phonemic repetition, because it is the phonemic value that's being repeated in different places. And so I found it an easier way to think about it. But again, this stuff is really like, how do we translate this and how do we talk about this is a whole other kind of meta question that like we kind of do need to address. And it's one I come up with a lot when we've been translating the Nyena Chidon, like how do we render this both with fidelity and also with readability, right? All right, so let's go on. So here we get some really fancy stuff, okay? So this is number 2. This is, so number 2 in the big list, like so of the 1 through 6, right? This is the repetition of 2 syllables in any other location, right? And this is actually, this example here is from, it's in 3 locations, Ni Sum Duche, right? So in 3 locations. And you see the lek at the beginning, middle, and end in all 4 lines. Come on, Tibetan is so cool. Like, how can you do that? Like, I mean, it's just like unreal. I every time I look at that, I go, what? Yeah, so that's an example of then the 2.6. So again, number 2 is split into 6 categories, and there's an example of that.
Have you translated that? And if you would translate it, would you put?
I actually have tried to.
Good.
Did I include that? I can show you later. I didn't I think if I was proud of it, I would have showed it, but I'm not. It's not as cool as the Zephyr Riders thing. So just.
Would you repeat that form?
I don't know, because I learned a lot from Lowell in our session. He did a similar one, a zungden, but it was with ma at the first syllable of every line, and his choice was to use less and un and to change that up, and it really sounded good in English. I really liked it. So I don't know. I'm like learning things, and I never was particularly happy with the translation. So I'm not sharing it. Sometimes. All right. So that was the zungden, and we're going to look at the zungden really closely. Do I want to keep going with the Shepta Alamkar?
We need to look at the time. I think we want to.
I know, the interaction, right? Yeah, exactly. So anyway, the next one is the Shakawa, and is the next section of the chapter. It's split into 3 different ones. The so-called cow piss poem, and the auspicious wheel, the Kunzang Korlo poems, and then we have the Yangsok Neba, the difficult poems by restricting vowel use. And I think you've seen certain ones of those. I'll just show you very quickly an example of the Balangchin Shakawa, and how you read it like kind of up and down, and then also left to right. So that's that one. The Kunzang Korlo, this is an example of Tseten Zhabdrung's Kunzang Korlo. I put numbers up there. I don't know how well you can see it. You actually start in the upper left corner, read inward, and then you go up to the upper right corner, read inward, go to the lower right corner, read inward, and so on in a circle. And then you do the same with another line, which starts up at the top up there, going Rikpe. That's the next stanza. Oh no, it's not. Which one is it? Balongdor. Sorry. Now I'm getting confused. Yeah. Where is it? Anyway, you get the idea. You get the idea. The next one is Balongdor. So I'm not gonna. It really is quite amazing, these poems. So. And then last is the difficult by limiting vowels, and you can restrict to 4 vowels, 3 vowels, 2 vowels, and 1 vowel. On the left is a verse by Tsongkhapa. Notice, it's all in just right? All four lines. So that's an example of that. And then here is the, these are totally mind-blowing. This category, 3.2, is by specifying places within, what do you call it, like the pronunciation, the articulation of certain sounds. That's a whole category. Like there's, you can do it with labial, dorsal, alveolar, sibilant, fricative. Like there's a whole list of different like linguistic restrictive things on using that. That just really is way beyond me. And this is from Don Carlos and Chunlei. And then you can just use 1 consonant. Le la 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 lum. Lum lum la la la. I mean, come on, it's amazing, right? All right. Okay. So that's my mind-blowing stuff for you. And now I'm going to turn it over to Rabsal.
You can open click the other one.
Sure.
No, right there.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I think Nicole asked our first plan. I think I make maybe my remarks first, and then we go. Maybe I think look in the time, we already spent 30 minutes. Hello. So I think how about we go together now. I give my initial remarks, and then we look at our example 1 together, talk over, then jump next. Each example I give my couple sentence initial remark, right? So I think the first, I think our translation, normally Nicole and I do translation, we do together. This time we did a little separate, so there must be errors. Please don't hesitate to point us. But don't hit us. With compassion, hit us. So that's my point number. Point number 2 is these examples we try to select is after the Kāvyādarśa translation, we go through downward. So, and then we figure out that we're not going to finish all the examples, so we stop at some point, right? So number 3 is this, and I think my remark is this. I think we literally go to language learning classroom, go back to the basics, right? So why you repeat a word, right? So we know the repetition, all of us know. I think, I don't know, the amazing part of this workshop is that our presentations, I see everywhere in the all of the others' presentations. So everywhere there's a repetition. So I'm thinking how I can make this more understandable, more catchy. So I think I can't think anything. And then first I thought of verbs. The Tseten Zhabdrung songs also have words. So the sharcho roots in Kāvyādarśa sharcho. Machi ami sheri yela kor jason. Again, you have a kor. And then sometimes you say draw, chin, song. In spoken Tibetan, during a chin tanche song, you have a verb repeater. So why we verb repeater? What that meaning? I think it's maybe easy to understand. So when you repeat a verb, most likely describe the duration of act or frequency of act. So chathung tonita tokonagido, right? So another ones we repeat nouns. Maybe you say jebo, right? Lama, right? I think at that times maybe you are calling for attention, right? Hey, Andy. So like that. I think noun repeat, and so now most complicated and easy to we remember Lama Chap's chart. The white, in order to color white, we have 2 pages, right? Those adjectives are very, I think, it's a different, for instance, such as, we know mang, the mambo more, right? Mama. So you repeat your mama is many, right? Yeah, how about you add kang mama, kang yon, kang che. So as much as possible. So this meaning is changing. So those kind of things, I think maybe we need to think through. So with that, okay, can we look at the example number 1, please? This is Tsabak Kunga Dorje. I read the Lotsawa Translation biography, and Translation biography has this. And this is maybe right after, what year this is writing? 1348. So maybe 80 years after translation of Kāvyādarśa, so some sort of in that. So there's a, so that's, I think I should stop. You, Nicole, welcome if you have to say anything, or anybody else about example 1. So should I read in Tibetan?
Yeah, that's what I thought you were
So Kenyi Mawa Chiyang Mimawa, Shupa Matsur, Shupa Temalek, Hami Chöne, Hase Zulatu, Pemataktu, Pepsi Dagladra.
Yeah. So I hope that Dzongden is clear. It's maybe clearer up here because I realize that the red doesn't always come out so well when you print it in black and white. But so the first line has the mama and the shushu, right? La, pep. And notice, this. So when Rabsal was explaining this verse to me and explaining Dzongden to me, he explained a really important stylistic feature that I'm going to try to get him to answer right now. And you said to me, if I remember correctly, it's stylistically more beautiful in Nyanak to use the term with 2 different meanings. Do you still stand by that, or do you want to comment on that? In this form?
In Sonden, no, I didn't say that. Hello. How's that? Our team is working.
He's my older brother.
Somewhere I read that Sonden is the pairing that has a different meaning. Each the repeated word is more preferable. Now I supposed to look that and bring to you, and I simply don't have time.
You
so
actually did.
Okay. I will describe. Listen, first Kenyi Mawa. It's a part of a noun. How you say that in English? Bilingual. Yeah, Kenyi Mawa.
Yeah.
Second, ma is a verb. Second, ma is a verb to speak. So shupa is a noun. I think nominalized a noun. It's a departure, maybe. What do we have? A departure.
Departure.
Yeah. Okay. So the second verb is a shul is a verb. To go, to go, right? And then hami chene. That's not ha tang mi first la. Second is ha sa la. So and then pema takto. It's a Pematak, as soon you arrive, pep, that meaning versus pep, you're gone. That's different. So those are things, yes. Any other comments, questions, please?
Yeah, and okay, yeah, no, you go first here. Let's speak into the mic though. If I can figure
how
out.
we do this.
There you go.
This is how we do, okay. Yeah.
In the translation, you have done a very successful meaning translation, but you lose the repetition because to make it mean something in English, you have gods and lhasa, and an Anglophone reader wouldn't know that that's the same word. And so was there a sort of thought process about that? Like, is there a way to save the repetition, or is it just impossible because double meanings can't have the same valence as in English?
Thank you. So here you go.
Yeah, no, I actually think I didn't send the most updated version of this, but that's part of it. But I did. I was totally aware of that, and I really had a hard time with that third line, right? So, but the first two lines, I felt I could do it with it making like so that the speaker speaking, departed, departure, right? So I did the repetition. I was paying attention to the zongden and just used inflection in English to bring that across, right? So that was my choice there, and then in the third one, I think I did change these last two lines, and I really can't remember how I changed it, but I think I said like something like the la gods or something. I think I added just la in there, la gods and humans or something, but it also sounded kind of awkward, and then I just sort of let it go.
Fourth line, you end up with the same problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Arrival and gone.
Yeah.
Very hard to say with the same word in English.
Yeah, and they end up being also confusing, right? So you can't, you can't do it. I think, yeah, no, it's true. I think you can play with it though. I think there's alternative verbs that you can use that would match.
Word like move, that's just movement without directionality.
I know. I'm trying to think of what I had in, how these things are. But I did change it, and they were the same word, but I can't remember what they were. But
Maybe like a kind of homonym too that isn't exactly, soon after I'd come.
yeah,
Come and gone.
yeah.
Soon after I got there, I heard you got going.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, I like this. Like that was great. Okay, back here. Any other comments on this? Or yeah.
It seems like part of the joy of it is the surprise at the end. That you, because of the opposite meanings of pep, right? And so I'm just thinking this out loud, but you expect sameness because of the yarmulke, but then you get a little twist at the end, right? And because the yarmulke is an anti-yarmulke, right? Yeah, that's all.
So moved and moved on.
Moved and moved on. Yeah, that's great. Moved and moved on. Nice.
Are you taking notes on
I have a general question, but I can wait till later if you want to get through some material.
Either way, I think
Yeah, feel free.
All right, I'll just put this out there and answer it or not as your schedule permits. Phonemic repetition is a very common feature of Tibetan literature, whether Tibetan verse, whether it's inspired by Sanskrit aesthetics or not. And I was wondering if you had any tips on how to recognize whether you should talk about something as a yarmulke or whether you should just get to thinking about its position in Tibetan literature without needing to reference a foreign domain.
I think Rabsal's the person who answered that question.
Like, how do you recognize when you see phonemic repetition?
I think
that this directly-
it's both shares maybe yes or no question. Answer, I think. The no is because we can find this kind of repetition in Tonghun document.
Right.
And drone tang, I think chamna, and mijin mimichu something like that. Tonghun document has. So drone tang cham say cham drone cham, and then you do something like that. Those things there. And then you come downward, you can find anywhere. Also, Kanjur Tenjur text also has that. So that's one. I think And you come back to your question that after Kāvyādarśa translation, then we see that in the course example, you are asking the questions how you translate leg. I think those kind of things may have something to do with the modified Tibetan language that is influenced by the translations or Sanskrit works. And the Tibetans, I don't know, we ever say, we draw, we say that. We say leg. I don't know we say that or not. So is that a general kind of thing?
So it doesn't sound like natural Tibetan, or it's...
And it's hard to say natural Tibetan. I think then we're talking about, it sounds like it's a little far away from the spoken language. Does that make sense?
So that's a clue.
Yeah, that's a clue, I think so. Yeah.
I think I would also say maybe the author is the clue. Like, I mean, if you know the author or if you have like more contextual information on whether they were learned in Yanak or not, because then you know if they had studied it, like then likely that they have it. Like there's also like indirect clues is what I'm saying. Like I don't think you can always just tell from just the language. I think there's also other ways to look at it.
So maybe then we should.
Well, I think actually the Longchenpa example is actually a good one to address this question.
Okay,
so let's look at it.
Yeah. So I think before look, I will make one quick comment. This one is the biography from just now we read is a biography from the Lotsawa Translation, who is a nephew of Pang Lotsawa Lotsawa. He is very active to teach Kāvyā in Tibet, and so. One of the students of Pang Lotsawa is Longchen Ramjamba. And again, Longchen Ramjamba is one of early Pang Lotsawa students to learn Kāvyādarśa from Pang Lotsawa. So he actually wrote some books on the Kāvyā and other poems, a lot of poems, right? Okay, so with that, so here we have Longchen Ramjamba. So maybe... Nicole, can we back and forth first, sure. Maybe number 2, number 3, and number 4, number 5, back and forth to read. You read English, I read Tibetan?
You read Tibetan, I read English.
Okay. So we read in number 2, start in number 2.
Yeah, the first verse is praise and it doesn't have the gyan in it.
I read in Amda, I think that's more natural to me. Think about
the ways that those who are born die. This illusory body seems so deceptive. The mind that has no birth and no death holds steadily to this stronghold. This is better.
Think
about the ways that those who assemble separate. Relatives and friends seem so deceptive. The essential meaning of intrinsic wisdom, inseparable. Hold on to this stronghold. This is better. Think about the ways that amassed things are consumed. Illusory wealth seems so deceptive. All belongings, properties, food, and wealth, hidden as treasures of generosity. This is better.
Tombo Mamor Jurlusum. Tseten Zhabdrung
Think about the ways that the high go low. Arrogance and wealth seem deceptive. Always taking the lower seat, properly practicing the holy dharma. This is better. Force the powerless to acts of sin. World leaders seem deceptive. Instructions on the virtuous path in this life and the next. Rely on a holy lama. This is better. Okay. So again, this is pretty rough translation. I mean, I didn't spend a lot of time on this, but and you want to do you want to do number 2?
No,
again?
You want to comment on this?
Yeah. Okay. So the what do you want to the
okay.
Lulu Dra like is the repetition, right? The Zongden, and like I chose in the first 2 through 6 just to kind of I like the idea of being deceptive with this. I don't know, I like that idea, but I felt like it also just had way too many syllables in English. So, and then the lulu in English, in the Tibetan is just kind of like, it's so beautiful, right? It's got this like kind of that, and so I was trying to emphasize that phonemic value in this. But then, so I just, so for number 2, and we could do this for all of the different stanzas if we wanted to, but I chose to use a different word that matched with the Tibetan. Like I kept saying lu out loud, and I was like, oh, lie, like a lie, you know? So I was actually drawing from the Tibetan sound and then thinking of English words that match that in order to do the phonemic repetition there. And that was kind of my inspiration. And whereas the first example, like I made it pretty clear as far as what my choices were. Like I think that's a really like important thing to do is that process of reflection as a translator. And I remember actually Curtis, I think it was maybe at one of the Tsadra conferences, and you presented the same verse, but you focused it in different ways and framed it in different ways. And that really changed my thinking about how to translate. Where do we go when we make those choices as a translator? Like, what is it that we are doing, and how do we get to that point where we make that choice? And I think like part of it is that like awareness of the form, because here I'm making that choice based on form. Like, so if I didn't know the form, right, there was no way I could even get to that point of making that choice. That's them next door. Okay, sorry, I get all excited with music. But yeah, I don't know. That's. I just wanted to be very open and clear about some of those choices that I was making as we did this. And then I don't know. Do you want to? I was thinking, what other? Like, I wanted to open it up to discussion now. Like, I asked, like, what other choices might we use? Are there questions? That kind of thing.
So you, in the translation of Lulu Draw, take that as like an emphasizer. So seems so deceptive.
Yes.
But what if you use the like that emphasis, but you also try to show the reduplication? So like, so false, or fake, so fake.
Sure.
Or something like that.
Yeah,
which kind of gives you a sense of both aspects, right? The repetition plus the emphasis.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that's what Lowell was doing in his, like, but it was like the same idea, like you use the verse, you use the form, and then you play with it. Then you add that other element of wordplay in English, and, you know, so false, so fake, so fake, so false, or something. Like you could even, you know, really get a nice kind of rhythm going with that because they're, you know, monosyllabic. So right. False, fake, you know, it's got that also that element of the syllabic to it. And that's also another layer to this, right? That I really haven't focused on, because that takes a lot more time and another layer of choice and thinking with it. But you've got it like automatically, like the spoken word thing, so fake, so false. I like it, so fake, so false. Yeah.
Let's hear.
I think,
yeah, please.
Yeah.
Are you guys including the nalek at the end and also the duksom as an element? Because that seems familiar from any Gur or any kind of native Tibetan composition, that you get the kind of parallelism within a verse. I don't know if that is that.
I don't know if I don't think that's a zoomed in, but I'm gonna.
No. Okay, yes, and I think she thought that's zoomed in too. Yeah, she thought that's zoomed in too. That's the why we select these first 7 verses to read.
And then it wasn't a zoomed in.
But this is exactly my question.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought it would be.
So
I think
see the phonemic repetition.
Yes, I think so. This should be zoomed in.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
See,
In
I don't know.
Tibetan.
And what are the clues? What tells you that? The author, the type of
No, I
phonemic
think it's the
repetition?
sound repetition.
So
Some like that. Each first lines, right? That should be zoomed in. And the end with a na leg like that. I think that's simple as that. So thank you for the question. And also the good part is I look at the poetry, the zoomed in books, and I'm looking for the what's the answer, why, the leg song, then the why, then there should be some sort of how you say, explanation or commentary on it. I did not find it yet. So yeah.
So, if I understand correctly, to answer your question, it's basically if you can't find it in the Kāvyādarśa, it's kind of an indigenous sungden, and if it is in the Kāvyādarśa, it's kind of a Sanskritic dragon. Is that correct?
No, I think the Chris is shaking his head. Yeah, okay. You want to say or?
It's a great question.
I just don't.
Both of those questions.
Yeah.
And your answers are great too, but I wonder if there's. Yeah, I struggle with this a lot too, but maybe you could see something that looks just like something in the Kāvyādarśa that is, it's a friend, right, to a form in the Kāvyādarśa, but it's a perfectly natural outcome of some other aesthetic potential in Tibetan. Or you could have something, I think you said you could, maybe the author is the clue, right? One of you said that, right? So you read from context, or if you see other things that are more closely, like you think, that's going to be hard to get out of some indigenous Tibetan aesthetic program, right? Or potential. But this one's, I mean, a lot of these are kind of easy, right? You could just imagine these and you can see them in very early Tibetan. But then there's the more interesting question of how the Kāvyādarśa influenced writing over long times and long distances, right? And how we start to see that. And I just think that's going to be part of the fun of literary history as we start to think more in a more granular way about this, right? So if someone's, grand teacher wrote a Perjo, right? Does that grand disciple, right? Is there influence there? Right? In classics, you could probably answer that question at this point in the 500-year history of classical philology, but we can't, right? Yet.
Yeah.
So one of the things I was struck by while I was reading up on Rasa theory is this a point somebody made that Rasa theory is imperialistic in that everything gets subsumed under it, and at least you see this in Indian literature, that at some point it may not really matter whether or not the author was informed specifically by Rasa, but if it has something to do with emotion and affective response, then people who work on Rasa get to say, oh look, here's Rasa, and grab it and claim it. And so I wonder if the Kāvyādarśa and Nyingak Melong we may have a sort of similar broader problem where, okay, just because it's sort of documented in some way in Nyingak Melong, does that mean that you get to sort of claim it and say, yes, here it is, it's here?
And there is a lot of evidence of the influence of Kāvyādarśa, but I think we should also keep in mind that it's just one of many texts, and it itself is a collection of forms that were already existent in poetry, in real stuff that had their own influences. And so it's hard to, personally, I don't know that we always need to say this is a yamaka, for example, but if it's useful, then we can. We can, and whether or not we're claiming that there's a historical value of that yamaka, we can say, well, whether or not there was an influence here, we could describe this with what Kāvyādarśa discusses as yamaka.
We can, but there is, getting back to Lama Jop's conversation about violence, there is a violence to the Tibetan language if we describe something in foreign terms, Indic terms, as opposed to attributing it to the deep store of Tibetan literary forms. So that's why that's what's behind my question of how can you tell, just to be careful about that.
Thank you for this comments and also question. I passed over Curtis. I thought maybe you're going to say Tundrubjes the Gurumbum. Okay. So I think now I say it. So the yeah. So the Tibetan commentary books, special. Okay, the commentary books and like this, and the Tongkar Rinpoche and other commentators, they try to explain every poem through the lens of Kāvyādarśa. That answers your question. So if a guru comes, and they're going to explain through the definition of ornamentaries, a figure of speeches, if it is, this is a pagan, or this is a sugin, or this is verse the Shabdalankara, yeah, Shabdalankara, or those kind of things they're going to use to explain the traditional songs. But I think that can explain that songs. No, I think Kāvyādarśa, through Kāvyādarśa links, you can explain maybe American poems even. How's that? Yeah. So those kind of things, it's a kind of a definition of poem. So that explains a lot. So therefore, and Tongkar Rinpoche also taken gurus into the Kāvyādarśa examples, and others I may have that examples been writing. So having said that, I think there's a big difference between the Tibetan Gur style and Dajin versus Kāvyādarśa style. And authors, Sharkanda Gyatso, let's say Sharkanda Gyatso has both styles, maybe one after another. So maybe sometimes it's nice to look at both examples. So the Kāvyādarśa style, maybe you may have more Ngonjo canons. You have more Ngonjos, more meta vocabularies, more Indian metaphors. The moon is great. Tibet is not going to love moon, you know. Why? We're going to love sun because it's so cool over there, right? So those kind of things. And then Guru, you have more kind of spoken language. Do, nagla do, and blah, 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 kind of those kind of things. So I think it's interesting to read both together. Look, one line here, and then look through what is the difference. Where's the canon applied? You know, those kind of things. Any other questions, comments on this? Longshimba?
Can I be devil's advocate and say that na lek is not a zongden because it's not repetition in the sense that it's not syllabic repetition, it's not the same syllables, and that it's a different gyan?
That's all.
I don't know. That one's just bugged me. I'm just not sure. But I think it could be, right? But I don't know. But it is definitely the repetition is there. But can you, I just don't know. The way I understood Zongden, it really has to be kind of this lulu or the pairing has to be there. But I'm not sure.
Can it be a pairing between verses? Because that's the pairing is the repetition.
Oh, yeah, sure. That can happen anywhere. That can. I mean, the repetition can happen, and across verses, absolutely. That makes it even more complicated. But yes, that does happen all the time.
For me, it wasn't so much the na-lek, the repetition. Because if you say na-lek, it actually doesn't mean anything.
Right, right.
It's not as a particle.
And then it's just a lek. This is, yeah.
It was den-na-lek, zung-na-lek.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of this, the verb, the structure is getting repeated.
Right.
Did you have an alternate, Nicole? Did you have an alternate?
For the
Zung
Zung-na-lek?
You thought that it was?
I don't know. I just couldn't, I was actually thinking maybe it's, I wasn't, I didn't know. I didn't really. I was kind of being provocative, actually. But I don't know. I just, because of the Zongden, because it said that it was, it seemed to be always this pairing. I just couldn't, I was confused by that. Why is it not, why isn't it the same syllables, these contiguous syllables? Because I didn't see that mixture of two different words in it. But we don't know, right? No. Okay, that's fine. Yep.
Question, comment?
All right, I'm going to try to figure this computer out, but I wanted to move on to example 3, which is actually, because Rabsal and I just sort of translate together, we can't not finish the entire thing. So we did verses 7 through 13 on pages 3 and 4, but we're not going to look at that. So they're really a rough draft.
So now example 3?
But example 3 we'll go to. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's okay. My
Okay.
remark, I think I start. So Tsongkhapa, we know all Tsongkhapa, right? So Tsongkhapa claims that he's the great poet, and in many of his works, I'm the great poet. What is that? Lopin Pao. I think Lopin Pao has two meanings in Tibetan. I think sometimes it's referring to Ashwagosha, or other times Kāvyādarśa, something like that. So Tsongkhapa says, I'm the Kāvyādarśa who came to Tibet to write the poem. I'm the great poet. So he says that. Also, he learned poetry from a Japan Namkha Sambo, who was, I think, a student of Lotsawa Translation Workshop.
Same.
So, same, yes. So, and then I think this is, we have 1, 2, and 3 examples we have. So we go through each example. So same as we do, I read Tibetan. Can you read English, the first one? Then we talk about the difference of Songden and the application of Songden in here, right? Yeah, what? Yeah, first is Sapsum and Zemi Kunta, Temin Rola, Makwai, Huta Nyangji, Chegin, Genche Maprum Bapai, Tambanamchi, Anamter, Tando Wongi, Yenchoka, Josezan Dabja, Jaton Ki Zanwaka.
The 3 trainings on this earth vast multitudes for their benefit, intense compassion's current flows, flowing continually downward. Holy person's liberation desiring, bees mesmerizing. I'm changing that order, sorry. The lotuses of pure conduct, 100,000 beautiful reservoirs dried out.
So in this verse, I think again we need to think back the history. I think the Kāvyādarśa translated in 1270s, 69 or 70s. So from there, now I don't know how many copies. At that time, there's no block printed, so copies are very rare, but people access it, and even Tsongkhapa really play a very wonderful. So first two is located there too. Second is Tuma, part of now, Tuma. And the second, the Gyun. First is I think a river flows, Chugyun, and then second Gyun is Gyunche Me. Without Gyunsheme, how you say Gyunsheme? Without
stopping.
Okay,
flowing continually.
Okay. Then Tamba Namche Namtar, Namtar is a Namtar. So then second, third is Tarndur, the one who wished liberated, right? And then last one, Dabja, Jutsu Sambun Dabja. Dabja is I think referring to the lotus, Dabja, and then Yaton is a Ya and a Ton, right? The different meaning. So that's that, and then Nicole's the PowerPoint we see that the pairs exist in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's an example.
Any cautions, comments?
So again, when I was translating this, I was I knew I couldn't take the different meanings of do into consideration literally, it just wouldn't work, right, as a data locative. And then, so what I tried to do is then repeat the English, though, and then, but have it modify what it's supposed to modify, right? So I kind of just played with it. I just played with it. And I don't know. I mean, sometimes I think it works, and then other times I'm like, I don't know, liberation, desiring, mesmerizing bees really doesn't work for me. But I'm not even sure I understand completely what that means. But I was really considering the form here, and also this sense of repetition in the middle, and that's what I prioritize. I said, okay, for this is a Zongden, with this usage of phonemic repetition in the middle. I know that's the form, so let me see what I can do with English to replicate that form, and that's the. Now I don't know what happened. That just went out. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So anyway, that was just to show you my translation choice again there, with that, and even though of course it's not exactly the way the Zongden works, but it's still kind of prioritizing that kind of phonemic repetition as the kind of the form. So that's what I chose for that. But I think there's a lot of other ways to do it. But I think also English is really great in that we can we have commas. Like, this is really nice, and poetry loves commas, so we can play with that. Like, that's another thing, is to, you know, not only can we change, we have inflection, but we also have commas, and that's like something to take advantage of sometimes. Like, use those commas. So. Yeah, please. I love talking.
I'm still stuck on the liberation desiring bees. Is the existence of bees, like fertilizing or whatever they do, lotuses, another layer of metaphor borrowing on the Indic tradition that can serve as a clue to think of about this? You know, I mean, is that part of your thought process? Or?
Yeah, that's definitely part of the, I think that's one of the Tsukchens in here, right? The metaphors in here. And there's like...
Yeah, yes.
There's also
yes,
Tsukchen going on.
Yes,
yeah.
also the one of the first scholars to criticize Tibetan poets. Too much using the
metaphors.
Borrowed in Indic, you say, ideas. Is a Gendichin. And his Tamjusir Kitama now both available in the English and Tibetan. I think, and he says, you know, I used the poem, how you say, use a metaphor, the Amnye Machen mountain as a metaphor. The Tibetans, oh, it's such ugly. And then I go to the mountain in India, use it in the metaphor. So those kind of ideas, Gendichin is so unhappy about it. Yeah, so that's the one of that. So that's therefore that's the sign of to distinguish the differences.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. I also small point. It's maybe point out the obvious, but in this one the repetition is not like chap chap ni parolna. It's you've got it ends one syllabic combination and then it starts the other, right? I don't think that's as colloquially. It doesn't appear as much colloquially. That's what I point.
Yes. I think an interesting one on this is that. Like you say in your translation of Sungden, it's phonemic repetition. It's not necessarily repetition of a word or even a meaning. So in the translation, you're trying really hard to keep flows and flowing, liberation and liberation. But the Tibetans, the point is, it's actually not the same word; it's the same sound, right? So that would be kind of cool, and maybe even liberating, maybe easier actually, to try to match the sound in English instead of the exact word.
That's what I was trying to do with the lie, right? Like,
Yeah.
There's different ways you can approach it, and for this one, I think also I just thought, okay, like what's the easiest way to do the repetition in English? Like keep the same word, right? Oh, now but you understand. Yeah, and I think it's a great point, but I think that's exactly like what we need to, as translators, like taking that thought process and going, okay, what is going on in the Tibetan, and like what tools do we have to use to think about this, and like and how can we have fun with it? Like how can we play with our own language, or with English in a way that's really like makes this stuff kind of fun? And I'm not saying vast is fun, because I find it actually very harsh and like kind of like I don't like the sound of it very much. But this is like, it's a first draft, and I mean this is nothing I'm like working on really, like, but I just I wanted to point out these possibilities, I guess, yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
Comments?
Other possibilities, like that's a great suggestion. Trying to really emphasize the sound, right? Like.
Might actually be easier.
Okay,
yeah,
so
sure.
maybe
do like what would you do? Like what would you do? You have?
That's easy for me.
No, I mean like, but maybe we have a collective mind here. Like I was thinking, like maybe we could like collectively think of things too. Like and with this in mind, I don't know. It might be a fun kind of thing. Or do you want to just go on to the next example?
Yeah, okay.
Next example, okay.
Yeah, you read one of your translation, I read the original Tibetan.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So, they're nice. We are
We're too serious here.
Yeah, Rossi Karchi Nyamden Redagmik, Miktabi Mango Yitoma, Mater Sewa Chuiki Daking, Ngon Hamo Yitan Sombrzo.
I'm going to do number 2.
Yeah, okay.
Playful dancing postures, doe-eyed, Eyes glance at such beauty. Satisfied? No, ma. Motherly love, give me the words of power like yours, Saraswati.
Wow, Nicole.
Ooh.
So my initial remark is on this. I think this is you have the verse of praise to Saraswati, Yanchimalatapa, right?
Mhm.
This is, I think, the biography says that one of Tsongkhapa's first writing poems. Upon this, finished this writing, and he got the poetic skills. So that's a kind of things they claimed. So in here you have a mik, and the ta tok jarba, right? Ta tok jarba.
So at the beginning of the end, right?
End word and beginning word, end word and beginning word. So we can see the mik, ma, nga, which I think Nicole skillfully played in English too, I think.
I tried. That one I tried with it. The
Yeah.
do-eyed and the eyes, the ma, and the motherly, and yeah.
So questions, comments, suggestions, please.
There are those who read about dance and there are those who dance.
Oh well. I have a question.
Yeah,
I mean,
Sarah, yeah.
This is really, really cool. Nicole, you're inspiring us all to try harder with this stuff. This is a more general question, so again, we can focus or go back to the Tibetan focus out, that is. So this session is called Ornamentation, Shared by Poetry and Song. And my question, I always think of us as sitting around at our computers in silence, using having a visual relationship with language, as opposed to our Tibetan texts sometimes give us clues like, and then I sang a song, right? And then we can, really cluing us to the orality of the medium. But are there clues in the Tibetan as to the difference between song and poetry? Is there a difference? Can we see in verse printed on a page, some of the diagrams must be visual, right? But in Pecha style texts, are there compositions that are clearly meant to be a visual art of looking at the verse as opposed to a song? Or are they meant to be spoken all the time? And are there clues to know?
That's a good question. Curtis, you heard it. The first thing that I'll just say first, what I thought really quickly is that there's so many different forms that I think it's hard to generalize. Like I think as far as visual representation, you just think of the Kunzang Korlo. I mean, there is the ultimate visual representation of poetry. Like it becomes an art form at that stage, really, and it operates on a whole other different level, right, than this orality, because it's a visual image and it's words and it plays at the same time with a kind of level of cleverness, so that was the one that came to my mind. But as far as like Lu and Gur and that kind of stuff, I really don't know. Do you want to answer?
I mean, maybe this is not the best form to represent this particular one
No, probably not.
to separate them into solid lines, because if it was just one line, it would be a lot more obvious, right? If it was in the form of a Tibetan Pecha, then the Zungden they would be right next to each other in a more visually impactful way. Yeah. But I can't. You're asking hard questions, Sarah. I mean, I look at it. What do other people think? You look at it and you think, it's supposed to be red, but maybe that's just my weird impression of Tsongkhapa. That's yeah. What do you?
I mean, this is just to open up as possible. Channeling from the years of the waters that pour. I mean, I feel like it's a lot about genre. Personally, I think people who do this know that gurs are sung, and in Gesar, when they say she broke out in song, that's signaled. And I mean, Rabsal, is there any chance Tsongkhapa sang these? No. How do you know? Yeah, it's about genre. How do you know?
These languages don't eligible to be taken as a spoken language, I think. How are you going to say? There's no way I can visualize speaking it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Is it fair to say it's not the genre that is sung also? I mean, could we, Gur, if you saw Gur, would you know it probably was sung?
Yeah, I think those are the things that we have really making our, I think, questions. My question, you're asking my questions to me.
So you have those same questions.
No, I'm using Sonden here. You're asking me my questions to me. You're questioning my questions to me.
And so you're saying, Rabsal, here that one of the clues is that when there's the dot under the line, the Tibetan underline, that's an indication of a visual signal.
Yes, visual signal. Sometimes we have a low sound, tap, each line, Tsongkhapas, and you have mark there and the mark, and this kind of marks. You have a certain mark. Sometimes just simple around. Sometimes underneath letters. We all must sing this. Sometimes around and underneath like this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what kind of mark is. It's a kind of symbolizing there is something. The sound play, Shabda Alankara is going on. Yes. Gonda. Yes.
Sometimes when I hear Tibetans reciting Nyangak, they do it in this kind of sing-songy way. And so maybe that's just to complicate the question a little, to say it's not like spoken language at all, and it's not exactly singing, but there may be certain styles of performing or reciting Nyangak that Tibetans do. I don't know, Lowell, if you've also, heard anyone sort of reciting or reciting or reading Nyangak, where it sounds a little sing-songy or musical. I don't know really how to explain it.
What just came to mind with Genla's definitive no, and also this nice Tibetan pop music next door, is that I saw that example, the Sempa Sangna Sadan Lamya Sang. I've seen that like done in rap style, so it's in like music videos and stuff. So maybe it's not so definitive. Or I think, actually I agree with you that Tsongkhapa probably never sang it. But that doesn't mean it couldn't be sung later, as it becomes this really popular cultural, almost folk trope, So.
We could have sung this playing, right?
Yes.
Maybe we should sing it back.
The Sambas on the Satna Lama songs, this I think 1 or 2, 3 pages long, Tsongkhapa's writing without any other vowels, right? And that is maybe you have to look at in Tsongkhapa category as a gur or this kind of a poem. That's number 1 answer. Number 2 is my definite no is this one. Rose karchi nyamde ridami. Tibetans don't know that the deer's eye is beauty or not. Tibetans don't. We have small eyes, right? We don't have a deer's eye. Look at me. So I mean, the hard question, the culture thing. We don't have I think, big eyes, right? Right? So Ridami, we don't have Ridami. Lauren, tell me straight. And then what's other that? Yeah. So this is, I think, a cultural thing. It's more like an Indian thing going on. Indian is, I think, the eye. Then you could put the eyes things, right, like that. So. I don't know. It's different. I think. Therefore, that is a part of answer. Okay. So, are we ready for our last verse?
Last example.
Okay.
Stop asking hard questions.
No,
So we can continue.
But it's so fruitful. No,
Yeah,
please.
yes.
Like I think it's really important to ask these questions, especially when we have a hive mind here. It's like so great, the conversation.
Okay. So, last verse, I need a volunteer to Tibetan reader.
Yeah.
Anyone? Okay.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
So Lauren, can you read the first line? Also, I'm okay. First line from a big start in our regular way. I'll read the second line and to backward. Okay? Yeah, Lauren, go.
Okay, I get you. Nangjin Nature Nangwei Dong.
Okay, let's stop there. Now I'm going to read the second line. Nangjin measure nangwe tong. Okay, now can you read the first line? First line, backward.
Okay. 동의 낭실 매진 나.
I'm reading second line regular way. 동위 나실 매제나. So the same time we play, okay? Yan, Lauren?
Okay. 람사.
Lamsa.
Yeah. Sorry. 람사 추가 도베케.
I'm reading the reverse second, fourth line. Lamsa cheka tokpe ke. Now can you reverse the third line?
Okay. 케베 토카 체잡람.
Kepe toka chesam lam. So,
This is the sixth one, the reverse one. Like this is the reverse of them.
so I think now you want to translate English translation.
Just exactly like that.
Yeah, no, I love that one. So everyone sees it, right? That it's like completely just reverses the lines. It's so masterful. Like how do you even begin like with that kind of thing? I mean, here I am going, go form, and then you're like, whoa, it's just mind blowing. I mean, I didn't even try. I just was like, I don't know. It's really. I bet a masterful poet in English could do it though, because like you can do it. It's just that you need that craft skills, like to really understand like the words in English in a way that would work. And I'm sure that there are poets out there who could do it. It's just it's beautiful. Yep. Julie.
Yeah, there's a group of poets known as the Ulipo who have played with these kinds of things a lot, and it actually makes me want to go back and look at some of their work. I know of people that are both French and English that were involved with the Ulipo, that sort of movement, and there's another kind of group called the Language Poets. And anyway, I would have to look back into it more myself, but I have seen, like Georges Perec wrote a novel based, only using one vowel, things like that. So I wonder, I wouldn't be surprised though. And then I started thinking, well, and did they know any of this? But it's just a kind of natural thing to do if you're really interested in language and abstract poetics.
Thanks for that. I'm going to write it down in a minute. But we're kind of we have like 5 minutes or so left. Is there any is it 7 minutes? Okay, 7 minutes left. I've been corrected. Is there anything that you would like to focus on, concentrate on, some more playfulness? Like we can think of playful ways to look at any one of these verses and think of it in a new way. You should comment on this one and why you chose it. That's right. We didn't. I only got this poem like last minute, and so I didn't have time to translate any verse of the last one on 7 and 8. Do you want to talk about why you chose this and what we were going to do with it?
So no, we had as the sonden, the whatever you name it, the repetitional or the whatever the word twice coming, 3 times coming, whatever you use, right? So these kind of things begin our remarks, verb repeated, noun repeated, adjectives repeated, right? So those repetitions we can find in Gurs and we can find Kāvyādarśas. So we have Kāvyādarśa style being Tsongkhapa and the other one, the Tsebakunga Dorje. And then we have Song Longchenpa, and then this is Kato Rinzhen Norbu. So every lama somewhere had, if you look at the Sombum yesterday, the Gur presentations, we saw a lot of Gurs, the Sombum guys, right? So Gurbum, Sombum, Gurbum, so that one. So this is an example we can look. Can we see any song dance in here? Can we do hide and seek game here? Right?
That's what you wanted to do with it?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Because that's what I was doing right now. We're looking for Zongden. So let's,
The poem is the page number 7.
Starts
Swasti,
right? It was before, and then I moved it. So
Okay, any comments? Nancy, speak.
Nancy, you want to start? Here.
Okay, so in the first stanza you have it, in the second and fourth line you have Chen, right? Chenbei Sisi Goodbye Yung Sel Gun. And then back to the last line of that, Chi word that Chen, right? Chen Shin Kila Dikema. Are we just
In the first stanza, in the second, forget Jen.
Dren.
Okay, Jen, yeah.
Dren, is that one? Dren?
Any?
J. In the second. Second stanza is J.
You pick this out.
Visually,
The word end in J.
Yeah.
Oh, J. J, J, and J.
Ah,
Four, J.
yes.
J. Oh, they're all.
Dre?
no,
J?
You picked this. You don't have the answer.
Do we need to write this out?
No, we were just like, I mean, I didn't even go through. I saw this
so
like
hard
5 minutes ago.
I
So.
don't know. Did you get a good? You don't have coffee, or should I buy coffee for you? Okay, go.
No, they're
Does
everywhere.
it mean anything that it goes this way? It makes a line.
We're discovering new
No,
things.
no, nothing. It's a printing. I think it's printing. Yeah, the good question. Sometimes the guru says I found that too. The lines, repetition. Yeah.
We're all like in the third grade now.
I know. I see it. But that's exactly it. Like, have fun with this stuff. That's my point. Is like it's so much fun, and like discovering language in this way, and like to think about it in these terms, and kind of like, just sort of play with both the Tibetan, enjoy that form, enjoy like thinking about these things in these new terms, and hopefully like, this will like become more pervasive. Like we will know like what a simile is in Tibetan, and the 36 different types of similes, and the 72 different words for like or as that exist in the Tibetan language. Like 72, I think, or 98. It's like Tseten Zhabdrung lists all of these different words for making similes in this. So like I really feel like this Zungden, like what we looked at today, is just one tiny example of the kind of awareness that we need to develop as far as like just basic literary skills. Just like in English, we know what a metaphor is, we know what a simile is, we learned this from Yehai. Like at least, and I don't think it matters so much that we can label it. Like I don't think it matters that we go, oh, this is a yarmulke of the third order on this type. Like I don't think that's like, I mean, yes, maybe for some people that's important, but I think it's just more important to cultivate a kind of awareness of the language in order to like enrich like translation processes, because that's what I mean, that's what we do, right? But there's all different types of people out there doing different things with this stuff. So, but I do think like just kind of trying to pay attention to these literary features is just such an important skill to cultivate, if we will. Yeah? Cool. Have fun.
Nicole, can you that's okay. So maybe Nicole, can you sit 1 minute, please?
I thought we were out of
Yeah,
time.
we are out. Okay. So can we do something in English?
Can we do something in English?
I start with the verbs. Fly, fly. Come on. No, can you complete my sentence? Fly, fly. Okay. Jump, jump. No. Okay. Yeah, that's all. Maybe something. So
Fly,
now
fly,
the English
sky,
point.
sky. Something. Yeah, we can do it. We can do it.
Is there an answer to this?
That is your homework. Thank you very much. Really, really.